What if I told you that the most powerful spiritual force in the universe has been deliberately hidden from you? What if the very energy that creates life itself holds the key to unlocking dimensions of consciousness that mystics have guarded for millennia? You're about to discover why ancient temples carved explicit sexual imagery alongside their most sacred symbols, why mystery schools taught that the union of masculine and feminine energies could literally generate light, and why this knowledge was systematically suppressed, buried beneath layers of shame and religious dogma. This isn't just about sexuality. This is about reclaiming a birthright that connects you to the creative force of existence itself. The ancients knew something we've forgotten, that sexual energy, when properly understood and directed, becomes a gateway to the divine. But here's what they don't want you to know. This power doesn't require a partner, a temple, or even years of study. It lives within you right now, waiting to transform not just your intimate life, but your entire spiritual journey. If you're ready to explore the forbidden connection between sacred sexuality and light energy, to understand why this knowledge was hidden and how you can safely awaken it today, then stay with me. Because what you're about to learn will challenge everything you thought you knew about spirituality, power, and your own divine nature. And if this resonates with your soul's calling, hit that like button now. It tells me you're ready for the deeper mysteries we're about to explore together. Walk into any ancient temple, from the erotic sculptures of Khajuraho to the mysterious carvings of Gothic cathedrals, and you'll find something that makes modern society uncomfortable. Sexual imagery intertwined with the most sacred spiritual symbols. This wasn't accidental. This wasn't primitive. This was initiate knowledge, encoded in stone for those who had eyes to see. The mystery schools of Egypt, Greece, and India understood what we've forgotten, that sexual energy is creation energy in its purest form. They called it by many names: the Kundalini serpent, the sacred fire, the generative force of the cosmos itself. But they all pointed to the same truth, that within the sexual impulse lies a doorway to divine consciousness. Consider the symbol of the lingam and yoni in Hindu temples, not mere fertility symbols, but representations of the cosmic creative principle. The masculine and feminine aspects of the divine locked in eternal union, generating the light that births galaxies and souls alike. The Gnostics spoke of the bridal chamber, a sacred space where the soul reunites with its divine counterpart, generating what they called the light body, a transformed state of being that transcends ordinary consciousness. This wasn't metaphor. This was instruction, hidden in plain sight from those who would misuse such power. Even the Kabbalah, that mystical heart of Jewish wisdom, describes the union of the Shekinah, the divine feminine, with the masculine aspect of God as the source of all creation. The tree of life itself can be seen as a map of sexual energy rising through the body, illuminating each energy center until it reaches the crown of enlightenment. But why hide this knowledge? Why encode it in symbols, myths, and rituals that only initiates could decode? Because they understood something we're only beginning to remember: that sexual energy, when awakened and properly directed, doesn't just create physical pleasure or even physical life. It creates conscious light. It generates what the alchemists called the philosopher's stone, not a physical substance, but a state of being where matter and spirit unite. The tantric masters of ancient India knew this. They developed elaborate practices not for indulgence, but for transformation. They understood that the same force that drives procreation could, when reverently directed upward through the chakras, literally illuminate the consciousness. This is why the sacred prostitutes of ancient temples weren't what modern minds imagine. They were priestesses, trained in the art of channeling sexual energy for healing, divination, and spiritual initiation. The temple wasn't a brothel. It was a laboratory of consciousness. The Taoist masters had their own version, the circulation of sexual energy through the microcosmic orbit, generating what they called the golden elixir, an internal alchemy that promised not just longevity, but enlightenment itself. Even Christianity, in its earliest Gnostic forms, recognized this truth. The Gospel of Philip speaks of the sacred kiss, the divine union that awakens the light body. Before the Church Fathers rewrote the narrative, the followers of Jesus understood that love, including sexual love, was a pathway to divine union. But as empires rose and religions consolidated power, this knowledge became dangerous. A population that understood their own creative, sexual, divine nature would be harder to control. And so the great forgetting began. Now here's where it gets truly extraordinary, and why this knowledge was guarded so carefully. When two people unite in sacred sexuality, something happens that modern science is only beginning to understand. They don't just exchange physical pleasure, they create what the ancients called circuits of light. Picture this. Your body contains the same bioelectrical energy that powers your nervous system, your heart, your very thoughts. During intimate union, these electrical fields don't just touch, they merge, amplify, and create standing waves of energy that can be consciously directed. The Tantric texts describe this precisely. When masculine and feminine energies unite, whether in two people or balanced within one person, they generate what Sanskrit calls ojas, a subtle energy that illuminates consciousness and can be projected into the world for healing, manifestation, and protection. This isn't mystical, wishful thinking. This is practical magic that couples throughout history have used to create extraordinary results. Consider the legendary partnership of John Dee and his wife Jane in Elizabethan England. Dee, Queen Elizabeth's court magician, understood that his most powerful scrying and manifestation work happened when he and Jane united their energies in what he cryptically called the sacred operation. Their combined energy field created a coherent force that could influence reality itself. The ancient Egyptian priests and priestesses worked in pairs for this very reason. The hieroglyph for magic itself shows two serpents intertwined, the masculine and feminine currents united in creative power. They knew that the energy generated through sacred union could charge talismans, heal the sick, and even influence the outcome of battles. But how does this actually work? When you unite with another in conscious, sacred sexuality, your individual energy fields merge into what physicists might recognize as a coherent energy system. Your breathing synchronizes, your heartbeats align, your brainwaves begin to match in what researchers call neural coupling. In this state, you become more than the sum of your parts. You become a biological generator of what the mystics called liquid light, a coherent energy that can be consciously directed. The Taoist masters taught specific techniques for this. During union, partners would visualize energy spiraling up through their spines, meeting at the heart, and then projecting outward to heal, protect, or manifest their deepest intentions. They weren't just making love, they were literally making magic. This is why so many abundance rituals throughout history involved sexuality. The Mesopotamian sacred marriage ceremonies weren't just religious theater, they were literal technologies for ensuring the fertility of crops, the prosperity of kingdoms, and the protection of entire civilizations. You can access this power whether you're partnered or single. The key isn't having a partner, it's understanding that you already contain both masculine and feminine energies within your own being. When you learn to unite these internal polarities, you generate the same coherent light. The practice is surprisingly simple. As you breathe deeply, visualize golden light rising from your root chakra, spiraling up through your spine. Feel it ignite each energy center: sacral, solar plexus, heart, throat, third eye. When it reaches your crown, see it fountain outward, creating a field of protection, healing, or manifestation around you. This is the real secret of sexual magic. It's not about the physical act itself, but about the conscious direction of creative energy. Whether expressed through partnership or cultivated within yourself, this force can transform not just your inner world, but your outer circumstances. But if this knowledge was so powerful, so transformative, why did it disappear? Why did humanity collectively forget one of its most potent spiritual technologies? The answer reveals one of history's greatest tragedies and explains why you may have felt ashamed or confused about your own sexual nature, even as something deep within you knew it was sacred. Around the 4th century CE, something shifted in human consciousness. The early Christian church, consolidating its power, made a calculated decision that would echo through millennia. They declared that the body, and especially sexual energy, was the enemy of the spirit. This wasn't the teaching of Jesus who walked with Mary Magdalene and spoke of love as the highest path. This was the agenda of men who understood that a population connected to their own divine creative power would be impossible to control. Think about it. If you know that your sexual energy is actually sacred energy, that your body is a temple capable of generating light and miracles, how could anyone convince you that you need external salvation? How could they sell you the idea that you're inherently sinful, fundamentally flawed, in need of their intercession? They couldn't. And so began what historians call the Great Repression, a systematic campaign to sever humanity from its most primal connection to the divine. The sacred prostitutes became whores. The temple arts became obscenity. The mystery school teachings became heresy. And generation after generation grew up believing that their deepest creative force was somehow dirty, shameful, separate from spirit. This wasn't just religious control. It was energetic warfare. Because here's what they discovered. A sexually shamed population is an energetically depleted population. When you cut people off from their creative life force, you make them dependent, docile, easier to manipulate. The witch hunts of the medieval period weren't really about witchcraft. They were about eliminating the last carriers of the old knowledge. The wise women who understood plant medicine, energy healing, and yes, the sacred arts of sexuality. Millions died to ensure this wisdom would be forgotten. But the suppression didn't stop with Christianity. As patriarchal structures solidified across cultures, the divine feminine, the receptive, creative, sexually powerful aspects of human nature, were systematically devalued. Warriors became more important than lovers. Competition replaced collaboration. The head was elevated above the heart, and both were separated from the body. This is why, even today, you might feel conflicted about your sexual nature. Part of you knows it's sacred, powerful, connected to something profound. But another part carries centuries of conditioning that whispers it's base, animal, something to be transcended rather than embraced. The result? We live in a world disconnected from its own creative power. We see sexuality as either purely physical pleasure or purely procreative function, missing entirely its role as a gateway to expanded consciousness. We've created a culture of sexual dysfunction, not because we're expressing our sexuality too much, but because we've forgotten what it's really for. We use it to escape rather than to transcend. We pursue physical sensation while ignoring the energetic reality underneath. And the cost has been enormous. Depression, anxiety, a sense of meaninglessness. These epidemics of modern life are symptoms of a deeper disconnection from our own creative, sexual, divine nature. But here's the hope that the controllers never anticipated. Truth has a way of resurfacing. The very internet they use for surveillance has also become a medium for ancient wisdom to spread. The sexual revolution of the 1960s, for all its flaws, cracked open the door to reclaiming sexual spirituality. And now, in this time of great awakening, more and more people are remembering what was never truly lost. The eclipse is ending. The light of sacred sexuality is returning. And you, by watching this video, by feeling the resonance of these words in your body, are part of that return. Now we reach the most transformative part of this journey, because reclaiming sacred sexuality isn't just about technique or historical knowledge. It's about facing the parts of yourself you've been taught to hide and discovering that within your deepest shadows lies your greatest light. Here's what the mystics understood that modern spiritual seekers often miss. You cannot transcend what you refuse to embrace. You cannot find enlightenment by bypassing your instincts, your desires, your raw human nature. True awakening happens when you stop fighting these forces and start working with them consciously. Your sexual energy carries more than just physical impulses. It carries your creativity, your passion, your power to manifest, your capacity for deep intimacy, not just with others, but with life itself. When you shame or suppress this energy, you don't become more spiritual. You become fragmented. Think about it. Every great mystic, every enlightened being, every truly awakened soul has had to integrate their shadow, the repressed, denied, unspiritual parts of themselves. And at the core of that shadow, for most of us, sits our relationship with our own sexual nature. This is why the tantric path was considered the fastest route to enlightenment. not because it was about indulgence, but because it demanded radical honesty. It required practitioners to face their desires without judgment, to explore their fantasies without shame, to embrace their full humanity as the very ground of their divinity. When you stop running from your sexual nature and start exploring it consciously, something extraordinary happens. You discover that buried within your desires are actually soul messages, your attractions, your fantasies, your deepest longings. These aren't distractions from your spiritual path. They're roadmaps to the qualities your soul wants to embody. Attracted to power? Your soul may be calling you to reclaim your own authority. Drawn to surrender? You might be learning to trust the flow of life. Fascinated by transformation? Your psyche could be preparing for a major evolution. But here's the crucial part. This integration has to happen consciously, with awareness and intention. Simply acting out desires unconsciously won't bring enlightenment. It will just create more karma, more entanglement, more confusion. The key is what the Tibetan masters called deity yoga, the practice of recognizing the divine qualities within even your most human impulses. When you feel sexual desire, instead of judging it or acting on it unconsciously, you pause and ask, what is this energy really asking for? What quality is trying to emerge through me? Maybe that surge of passion is actually your creative force awakening, asking to be channeled into art, music, or meaningful work. Maybe that longing for union is your soul's desire to merge with the divine, seeking expression through meditation or prayer. Maybe that raw power you feel is your authentic self, tired of playing small, ready to step into your true magnitude. This is the real alchemy, taking the lead of unconscious desire and transmuting it into the gold of conscious expression, not by denying the energy, but by understanding its deeper purpose. The shadow work required here isn't comfortable. It means honestly examining your fantasies, your shame, your sexual history, not to judge any of it, but to understand what these experiences have been trying to teach you. It means acknowledging the ways you've used sexuality to avoid intimacy, or avoided sexuality to escape your power. But on the other side of this integration lies a remarkable freedom. When you no longer carry sexual shame, when you no longer fragment your spiritual and sexual natures, your entire energy field becomes coherent. You stop leaking vital force through internal conflict. You become whole. And in that wholeness, you discover something the ancient mystics knew, that sexual energy, when fully integrated and consciously directed, becomes the very fuel of enlightenment, not despite your humanity, but because of it. Not by transcending your desires, but by understanding their sacred purpose. Now that you understand the power you carry, we must address the most practical question. How do you protect and nurture this sacred energy in a world that still largely misunderstands it? This is where ancient wisdom becomes modern necessity. Because once you've awakened to your own sexual spiritual nature, you'll discover that not everyone is ready for this level of consciousness. Some will try to shame you back into hiding, others will want to use your energy without understanding its sacred nature, and some will simply be triggered by your wholeness because it reflects their own fragmentation. The mystery schools had protocols for this. They understood that sacred sexual energy, like any powerful force, requires boundaries, discernment, and protection, not from fear, but from wisdom. First, learn the art of energetic discernment. Your sexual energy isn't just personal pleasure. It's your creative life force, your connection to the divine, your power to manifest reality. When you share this energy unconsciously, you're not just being intimate. You're creating energetic bonds that can last far beyond the physical encounter. The Tantric masters taught that every sexual exchange creates what they called karmic threads, energetic connections that continue to influence both people until consciously dissolved. This is why they approached sexuality with such reverence, such intention, such care. Before any intimate encounter, ask yourself, is this person capable of honoring the sacred nature of what we're sharing? Are they seeking connection or just consumption? Will this exchange elevate both of us or drain one to feed the other? This doesn't mean being prudish or fearful. It means being conscious. It means recognizing that your sexual energy is not separate from your spiritual energy. It is your spiritual energy in one of its most potent forms. Second, develop your internal protection practices. Just as you wouldn't leave your home unlocked in an unsafe neighborhood, you shouldn't leave your energy field unprotected when you're carrying this level of awareness. Before sleep, visualize golden light surrounding your entire being, with the specific intention that only energies aligned with your highest good can access your field. When you wake, take a moment to sense your energy. Is it clear and vibrant, or does it feel heavy, depleted, or somehow not entirely your own? If you feel energetically affected by encounters, sexual or otherwise, practice the ancient art of energetic cleansing. Visualize any cords or attachments that don't serve your highest good being, dissolved in white light. Call your energy back to yourself from anyone who might be unconsciously holding on to it. Third, know when to share and when to contain. There's a time for expressing your sexual spiritual nature openly and a time for protecting it in silence. The key is reading the energy of situations and people accurately. In intimate relationships, this knowledge can transform everything. Instead of using sexuality to escape or to please, you can approach it as a shared spiritual practice. But this requires a partner who's equally committed to consciousness, or at least open to learning. If you're single, remember that you don't need a partner to access this energy. The internal marriage of your own masculine and feminine aspects can generate the same light, the same healing, the same transformative power. Some of the most powerful mystics in history were celibate, not because they rejected sexuality, but because they had learned to circulate that energy entirely within themselves. Fourth, be prepared for the resistance, both internal and external. As you embody this integrated sexuality, parts of your own psyche may rebel. Old shame programs may resurface. Family or religious conditioning may create internal conflict. When this happens, breathe deeply and remember, you're not just healing yourself. You're healing generational patterns of sexual shame and spiritual fragmentation. Every time you choose wholeness over division, consciousness over unconsciousness, you're contributing to humanity's evolution. Externally, some people may not understand your transformation. They may accuse you of being too sexual or not spiritual enough. These reactions usually reveal their own unhealed relationship with these energies. Respond with compassion, but don't compromise your integrity to ease their discomfort. Finally, remember that this is sacred fire. Treat it with the reverence it deserves. Create ritual around your sexuality, whether partnered or solo. Light candles, set intentions, express gratitude for the creative force that flows through you. The flame you carry is not just personal, it's part of humanity's return to wholeness. By honoring it, protecting it, and sharing it consciously, you become a guardian of ancient wisdom and a pioneer of humanity's sexual spiritual evolution. Keep your flame bright, but keep it sacred. The world needs what you carry, but it needs you to carry it wisely. We've journeyed together through forbidden histories and reclaimed truths, from the encoded wisdom of ancient initiates to the practical magic of conscious sexuality, from understanding why this knowledge was suppressed to learning how to protect and nurture it today. But knowledge without application remains mere philosophy. So here are 3 practices you can begin immediately. First, start each day by connecting with your creative life force. Place your hands on your heart and lower belly. Breathe deeply and sense the energy there, not as something separate from your spirituality, but as its very foundation. Thank this energy for the life it gives you, the creativity it fuels, the potential it carries. Second, practice the internal circulation I described. Whether you're partnered or single, spend time consciously moving energy up your spine from root to crown. This isn't about sexual arousal. It's about awakening the circuit of light that connects your human and divine natures. Third, approach all your relationships, intimate and otherwise, with greater consciousness. Ask yourself, am I sharing energy or exchanging it? Am I connecting authentically or performing unconsciously? How can I bring more presence, more reverence, more sacred intention to this interaction? Remember, you are not just a physical being having occasional spiritual experiences. You are a spiritual being expressing through a physical form, and your sexuality is one of the most powerful ways that spirit expresses itself through matter. The ancient mystery schools guarded this knowledge for good reason. It is transformative. It is powerful. It can change not just your intimate life, but your entire relationship with existence itself. But the time for secrets is ending. Humanity is ready to reclaim its wholeness, to remember that we are both human and divine, both earthly and cosmic, both sexual and spiritual, not in conflict, but in perfect, sacred unity. If this video has awakened something in you, if you feel the truth of these words resonating in your body, then you are part of this great remembering. Share this wisdom with others who are ready. Like this video to help it reach those who need to hear it, and subscribe for more content that bridges the ancient wisdom and modern awakening. Your sexuality is sacred. Your body is a temple. Your desires are doorways to divinity. Never let anyone convince you otherwise. The secret flame has been passed to you. Now it's your responsibility to keep it burning bright.